Hello everyone. Welcome all of my viewers to this brand new video. In today's tutorial, we will be dealing with a vulnerable machine, categorized as easy and medium in terms of difficulty. To begin with it, you'll need to download the vulnerable image from the VulnHub website. If you're not familiar with VulnHub yet, feel free to check out these videos on VulnHub playlist. After you've successfully downloaded the image, it's time to set up the server using VirtualBox, which is a straightforward process. Firstly, launch VirtualBox. Go to the File menu, and select Import Appliance. Import the downloaded OVA file. Browse your computer to locate the download file. Now, click Next. Review the appliance details and settings. You can keep the default settings or make adjustments based on your needs. Click Finish to begin importing. Once the import is done, Inferno Vulnerable Machine will appear in the VirtualBox Manager. Select the virtual machine and click Settings, and change the network adapter to host-only adapter. Make sure that both your Kali Linux machine, which is used for performing attacks, and your vulnerable machine must be connected to the same network. Once the setup is done, it's time to start the virtual machines. You'll notice that our vulnerable machine is all set, and we now have a login prompt waiting for us. Let's dive into the fun. Enumeration. Enumeration is the first process of our attack, aimed at identifying the IP address of our target machine using netdiscover. To do this, open a terminal and run netdiscover-i and then specify the network interface name, which is ETH1. From the scan result, we have obtained our target IP address, which is 192.168.95.113. Next, we perform a network scan to detect what ports are open. Scanning the network is an essential part of the enumeration process. This allows us to understand the attack surface and plan targeted attacks. For this purpose, we'll use the popular Nmap tool. Use Nmap-sc and -sv and then specify the IP address. Where -sc is used to perform a script scan using the default set of scripts, and -sv is used to enable version detection, which will detect what versions are running on what port. From the network scanning, we have spotted several open ports, but among them 2 open ports have known version details. The port 22 TCP running an SSH service, indicating that with valid credentials, gaining login access to the server will be straightforward, and port 80 TCP running an HTTP service, suggesting a vulnerable website is being hosted. Now, let's explore the content of the website running on port 80. To look at the contents ourselves, open a web browser of your choice, and navigate to the target's IP address in the URL bar at the top of the window. Upon visiting the web page, we noticed it contains a text and an image. There are no significant contents. To further enumerate the target URL, we need to perform directory busting to discover hidden or hard-to-access directories and pages. We'll use Gobuster as our tool of choice, using following command. Where Gobuster dir is used to instruct Gobuster to perform directory busting. -u is used to specify the target URL we want to explore. -w is used to provide the path to the word list containing common directory names to try. -x is used if you want to limit the search to specific file types. We can specify them here. After performing the directory busting, we discovered 2 important web pages. One of them is Inferno with a status code of 401. This status code indicates that the client's request could not be completed because it lacks valid authentication credentials for accessing the requested resource. In simple terms, the web page requires login credentials, and without them, access is restricted. When I visit the web page, I am greeted with a login prompt, asking for a username and password. To access the content on this web page, I need to provide valid login credentials. Let's attempt to log in using some common passwords such as admin, admin, and admin password. Let's try to capture the interception. To capture the interception, we'll use Burp Suite. Open Burp Suite and turn on Burp Proxy using Foxy Proxy. Once after assigning username and password, click on Sign In to capture the log. There seems to be some problem. Let me cancel the previous session, and visit again the Inferno web page. Now, again type a username and password, to capture the interception. Unfortunately, we didn't find any useful information, except for the GET request. After canceling the login request, we see an unauthorized page. Now, the only option left is to use brute force to find the username and password. For this purpose, we'll use a tool called Hydra. We use a common username word list and the famous rocku.txt word list for passwords. To perform the brute force attack, use a command Hydra-L followed by the path to the username word list. If you have forgotten the path, just drag and drop the file into the terminal. Then type -p to specify the path to the password word list. Finally, include the host IP address along with the protocol request, such as HTTP GET, and specify the web page you want to target, for example, Inferno in this case. You can also use the -t flag to set the number of tasks per second. Once the brute forcing is successful, we obtain the valid username and its corresponding password. With this information, we can visit the Inferno web page and log into the server to view its content. To stop the current operation in the terminal, press Ctrl+C. Then, return to the browser and enter the username and password. On successful, you will be redirected to the Codiad IDE web login page. Codiad is a user-friendly, open-source web-based integrated development environment, IDE, that offers a lightweight coding environment accessible through a web browser. With Codiad, developers can effortlessly write, edit, and manage their code using a web interface. This enables seamless project collaboration and flexibility, as developers can work on their projects from any device connected to the internet. In another video, we'll explore its installation steps and usage in more detail. Stay tuned! Let's attempt to log in using the previous password. Once we do, we'll access an IDE interface. The interface has a file explorer on the left side, allowing us to click on any file to view its content on the right side. Let's check if we can remotely access the web server using the Codiad web-based IDE and try to exploit on the server. Exploitation. After searching for Codiad remote code execution on Google, I came across a suitable Python exploit on ExploitDB. I will now proceed to download the Python exploit from here. To execute this Python exploit, open a terminal and navigate to the download directory where the Python exploit is stored. Use the ls command to list the files and directories in the current location. As usual, to run any Python file, use the Python command followed by the Python file name. After executing the Python file, we can see the usage instructions to run the exploit. We need to input specific information as provided in the usage. Use the Python command followed by the Python file name, then paste the URL. Next, enter the username and password. After that, provide the local host IP address of the host-only adapter. If you don't know the IP address, type ifconfig command and copy the IP of the ETH1 adapter. Specify a port number. Lastly, mention the platform name. Based on the information obtained from Nmap, we know that the web server is running on the Linux platform. Upon execution, the Python exploit instructs us to run 2 netcat commands on another terminal. After executing each netcat command, we need to type Y to proceed further. After trying to establish the remote login connection, it failed. This might be because the URL lacks any authentication token or additional credentials. However, there is an alternative format where you can directly include the username admin and password Dante1 in the URL itself by separating a colon after http://. This format is valid and will pass the provided credentials to the target server for authentication. Here, on this terminal, we have successfully connected to it. However, the remote connection doesn't seem to be stable, so run the Python command to spawn the terminal. Use this command to set the terminal type to xterm. Even though we don't have a stable connection at the moment, we can still gather valuable information that will help us to establish an SSH connection. To do this, let's navigate to the home directory and use the ls command to list the files and directories present. Among them, we notice a directory named Dante, which strongly suggests that it might be the username associated with the vulnerable server. This discovery can be crucial for further exploration and exploitation. Now, let's carefully examine the files and directories to see if we can locate the password or any clues that the creator might have left behind. This information could be essential for advancing in our exploration and gaining more access to the system. Next, we'll navigate to the Dante directory and use the ls-alf command to list all files, including hidden ones, just like we do on any Linux platform. While exploring these directories, we come across an interesting file named .download.dat. To see its contents, we use the cat command. Inside the file, we find hex-encoded text, which could be a crucial piece of information for gaining access to the server. To decode the hex codes, we'll visit CyberChef in our web browser. Firstly, we'll paste the hex codes into the input section. Next, in the operations section, we'll search for hex and then drag and drop from hex operation into the recipe section. By checking the output section, we successfully find the password for the user Dante. With the valid username and its corresponding password, we are now equipped to gain access to the server using an SSH client tool. Foothold. Since we have a valid username and password, let's establish a connection using an SSH client tool. Open a terminal and type SSH followed by the username and the host IP address. When prompted, enter the password to establish the connection. The established connection have stable connection, so let's take a look the user flag. Type ls command to list the files and directories, check if there is user flag available or not. Here, we have got the user flag on local.txt file. Using cat command, take a look at its content. As you can see, we have successfully obtained the user flag. Now, our main focus now is to acquire the root flag. Upon navigating to root directory to obtain the root flag, we need root permission. It appears to be like that, we lack the necessary permissions to access the root directory. Therefore, let's proceed with privilege escalation to elevate our privileges and gain access to the root flag. Privilege escalation. During privilege escalation, the first step is to gather information about the system and identify potential vulnerabilities or misconfigurations that could allow us to elevate our privileges to gain access to the root level. Let me run the ID command to find out the user and group names, and numeric IDs like UID, or group ID of the current user or any other user on the server. Upon running the ID command, we have discovered that both the UID and group belong to the user Dante. Let's check the rights and privileges of the current user by running the sudo-elf command. After executing the command, we discover that the user Dante has sudo privileges specifically for the T application. The T is a command line tool used in Unix-like systems that allows users to read from one source, like the keyboard or a file, and then duplicate and send that input to both the screen, standard output, and one or more files. The name T comes from its T shape, representing the splitting of the input into multiple streams. In simple terms, when you use T with a command or input, it shows the output on the screen as usual but also saves a copy of that output into specified files. This can be helpful when you want to keep a record of the output while still viewing it in real time. It's commonly used in scripts and tasks where you need to capture and store data for later use. After conducting a Google search for T privilege escalation, we came across a helpful blog that explains two methods to use the T command line tool for privilege escalation. Firstly, we can obtain root permission by exploiting the user's permission in the sudoers file. Secondly, we can achieve privilege escalation by adding a new username and password to the password file. Let's proceed step by step to achieve privilege escalation. First, we will explore the options one by one. Our objective is to gain privilege escalation by utilizing the user's permissions in the sudoers file. Here, type this following command. Where, the echo command is used to display the specified text on the terminal. Here, we are creating a new line in the sudoers file that grants specific privileges to the user Dante. The vertical bar symbol is called a pipe. It is used to pass the output of the echo command as input to the next command, sudo t. The T command is used to read from standard input and write to standard output files simultaneously, and the -a option is used to append the input to the specified file rather than overwriting it. When you run the entire command, it will add this line to the sudoers file, giving the user Dante the ability to run any command with sudo privileges without being prompted for a password. However, it is essential to be cautious when modifying the sudoers file, as any mistakes could lead to system instability or security issues. After successfully executing the command, you can verify the changes using the following command, sudo-l. As you can see, the user Dante now has root permission. Now that the user Dante has root permission, let's access the root flag. To do this, change the current directory to the root directory. However, you might encounter a permission denied error. To gain super user permission, type sudo su. Once you have gained super user privileges, change the directory again, and now you can access the root directory. Let's check if there is a root flag file in the root directory by using the ls command. Once you've located the root flag file, you can view its contents using the cat command. As you can see, we have successfully gained the root flag. Let's explore the second method, which involves adding a new user to the target system. To do this, we'll use the OpenSSL command line tool to generate an encrypted password for the new user. First, we'll display the contents of the password file by typing cat followed by the file path. Next, we'll have to copy the structure of the root user and paste it into a text editor. Instead of X, replace it with a $sign. Inside the brackets, we'll use the OpenSSL password -6-salt command along with the new username and password, where the -6 flag indicates an SHA-512 hash, and the -salt flag adds a salt to the hash for security. Here, instead of root, we'll use the new username for the user that we want to create. After that, we'll add the T command to save the changes to the password file. Finally, we'll copy newly generated command, and paste the entire command into the terminal to add the new user. Now, we can switch to the newly created user by running the su command. As you can see, we have successfully gained root access. If you have any questions or doubts, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help and address any inquiries you may have.